Good morning. Welcome to the last of our monthly press briefings for the Sheriff's Department. This has been a long year. It's been a trying year on everyone, and we are no exception. I want to first offer my condolences to those who have suffered through COVID and the families who have been impacted by losing loved ones. That is never an outcome that we had hoped to accomplish or have happen as we combat COVID-19. We are dealing with it here in the Sheriff's Department, both within our employees and inmates entrusted to our care. Several weeks ago, there was a court order came from the Superior Court that was ordering the release of 50% of our jail population. I filed an appeal with the Court of Appeals and got a response yesterday from the court, not denying the stay, but denying the motion at this time. That order is being held without prejudice until we are able to move forward. I will be moving forward and submitting in accordance with the court order a plan of what the impacts of those releases would be upon the public. I still have significant issues with the impacts of what this might entail, and I will stress those to the court in our response. Currently, we have released to date 1,471 inmates entrusted to my care. I have been able to also include in that 1,471 183 of which were declared medically vulnerable individuals. One of the issues with the order that I saw was the assertion that we have not had a strategy or a plan. That is not true. From the beginning of COVID-19 in March of this year, we have always had a plan. Our plan has been to provide personal protective equipment to both staff and inmates, including masks, hygiene and cleaning materials that would help them mitigate the risks within their housing environments. We were able to stop unnecessary services. Unfortunately, that included visiting for our inmates because it created congregate settings within our facilities, and also early releases, as I mentioned before. We take temperatures of all personnel, and we have a very robust quarantining environment for both new bookings, those exposed, and those who are experiencing medical symptoms through isolation, which has proven to work very, very well. At the height of our first outbreak of 220, we were able to mitigate down to the beginning of December to 0 inmates within our care who had part of our general housing environment. We have an outbreak currently, which we're trying to still work through. We have proven that through our best practices, we can mitigate that number down. We're at approximately 1,200 inmates in our care, mostly within our intra-facility general housing, 37 of which are new bookings brought from the outside in who we're working with. I want to stress though with that number, unlike what we're seeing in the public outbreak, that number appears much higher because we're testing every inmate in our care. The vast majority of those inmates are asymptomatic and don't have any symptoms of being ill. We have had 7 to date since March who've been hospitalized. Currently we have 2 inmates who are hospitalized with minor symptoms but are being treated in a local hospital. We have had 1 inmate who has passed because of COVID-19. But I want to stress, consistent with our approach, even if we were to consider for release all the inmates, and they have all been considered for release, this individual would have never been released from my custody based on our criteria. He was in custody for a 3 decades long crime identified by our cold case homicide unit, where he is accused of kidnapping, maliciously raping, and murdering a woman 3 decades ago. He did have underlying health conditions. And although the court order is very broad in limiting our housing environment, this individual was housed in a single cell by himself, which goes to show that that measure in and of itself is not an absolute panacea to prevent the risk of COVID-19. COVID-19 currently is at its height. It's spreading rapidly throughout the community, and the jails are no different from that risk. But there is a significant risk for those who remain within my jail by releasing them back into the public. Everybody who I could release has been released from the jail, who presents not a risk, but a limited or minimal risk. Those who remain in the jail present a significant risk of very heinous crimes they've alleged to have committed or been convicted of committing, or present a risk to the public if I'm forced to release them back into the community. I do want to also cover real quick some of the other issues that we're facing within the jail beyond COVID. Some of the drug trends that we've seen happen this year are very impactful. We've had a resurgence of drug trafficking. Methamphetamine has been increased significantly over the last several years. This year's no exception. Cocaine trafficking is back up as well, based on some of the things happening south of the border. But in the first 3 quarters of this year, our street narcotics teams, these aren't the regional teams that are focused on the cartels, the majors teams. Our street narcotics teams have made 180 felony arrests. They've seized 51 weapons, 36 kilos of cocaine, 132 pounds of heroin, 777 pounds of methamphetamine, and more than 36 pounds of fentanyl, which equates to over 8 million lethal doses, and 444 pounds of marijuana. In addition to drug proceeds heading south of the border, we've intervened and intercepted $2.5 million in drug proceeds headed back south of the border. What's most alarming to me, and I think should be alarming to the community at large, is the overdose statistics that we are recognizing year to year. In the first quarter of 2019 to the first quarter of 2020, we've seen a 24% increase of overdoses. 233% increase in the first quarter from fentanyl-related overdose alone. In quarter 2, we saw the same increase, 180% increase in fentanyl overdoses from 2019 to 2020. Fentanyl, in my opinion, still presents one of the greatest risks to the community. We're still seeing it trafficked in large doses. It's oftentimes masked or mixed with other drugs that some people may not even know that they're consuming, and the risk of immediate overdose is significant. Our naloxone statistics as well have gone up significantly. Naloxone is an opioid antagonist. It is a nasal spray for people who are overdosing on opioids. All of our field personnel have access to this and carry it with them. And in 2019 to 20, we saw an increase of 61% of overdose saves from our field personnel by using our naloxone program. This is very significant because for the 5th year in a row, I again will be sponsoring with Senator Bates, Pat Bates, a bill, it's now Senate Bill 75, that will incorporate with other drugs, marijuana, methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine, the same penalties for trafficking pure fentanyl, which is much more dangerous than any of those other drugs independently of that. This bill is not focused on users. This bill is focused on those who are trafficking and selling fentanyl to be included with the same enhancements that those other drugs have, or penalties if somebody is found guilty for trafficking or selling pure fentanyl. I recently had the opportunity to participate this year on the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and the Administration of Justice, and specifically was part of the Social Issues Impacting Public Safety Committee. That report was recently issued, and I'm proud of some of the recommendations that have been made and coming out of that report. What's most important to me is to create intervention strategies that will get law enforcement out of the business of dealing with those experiencing mental health crisis, those who are experiencing drug use or substance use disorder, and also those experiencing homelessness. I'm an advocate for intervention strategies that will replace law enforcement's necessity to intervene when people are in crisis. I've assigned staff to comb over and evaluate that report and look for best practices that we can bring into and incorporate within not only the Sheriff's Department, but also within Orange County. As far as crime trends goes, there's one trend that has been very prolific this year in Orange County, and that is auto theft. In sheriff's jurisdiction, and we patrol approximately 1/4 of the county's 3.2 million residents, we've seen a 25% increase in auto theft. Not only the theft of cars, but the sophistication that these professional thieves go to steal from dealerships through fraud. I'm proud of the Orange County Board of Supervisors' recent decision to increase the licensing fee by $1. This is the first time in decades, by the way, that this has been increased. That will allow us to not only continue the Orange County Auto Theft Task Force, but also add staff back to it to deal with the rising crime of auto theft. That said, we need you to help us prevent being a victim of crime. Always keep your vehicle, whenever possible, in a locked garage. Your vehicle is twice as likely to be broken into or stolen if it's parked outside your garage, or 4 times more likely it's parked away from your home. Never leave items of value in plain sight within your car. Always keep your car locked and garaged, as we said. And if you're not going to be home, ask a neighbor to keep an eye out for your car. We have several major arrests that took place over the last several months. I want to highlight 2 of those that I think are significant in how we protected the residents of Orange County. A few months ago, we had a traffic stop that occurred within the city of Stanton. That traffic stop resulted in the seizure of 3 loaded handguns in the car, a short-rifled AR-15 assault rifle, ammunition, ecstasy, fentanyl pills, psilocybin mushrooms, which is a drug that's on the surge back, some currency, and the rest of 2 people. One of them was an ex-felon who obviously is not allowed to be in possession of those weapons. Another crime spree that we're seeing happen right now, at least a trend, is the theft of catalytic converters off of vehicles. Thieves will actually go into your car at night, they'll steal off the catalytic converter, which is part of the exhaust system, and they do that because the metals that go into manufacturing those can be resold and recycled at a very high dollar amount. We recently had arrest of several crews who are stealing catalytic converters within sheriff's jurisdiction. 2 were arrested in Ladera Ranch in November. 2 were arrested in a stolen vehicle in unincorporated Santa Ana, also in November. And in late November, around Thanksgiving, we arrested 3 suspects in Lake Forest with 5 stolen catalytic converters in their possession. So just like you want to keep your car safe, we want to make sure that you also are aware of people sneaking around cars at night. And if you see something that might be suspicious, please call us and let us go out and investigate that so we can intervene and, if appropriate, make arrests of individuals who are stealing those pieces of property off of your car. As I said in the beginning, it's been a very difficult year on all of us, the community especially. Many people have been impacted by COVID-19. Many businesses have been lost and will not reopen. We've all seen a change in how we have to address and respond to these things. From the beginning, the Sheriff's Department has been active in the management of the COVID crisis by staffing the Emergency Operations Center and being designated as the Director of Emergency Services. That includes the response on a countywide working with other entities, healthcare agency, the Board of Supervisors, the CEO's office as well, and also, most importantly, getting critical supplies into Orange County and distributing those back out to healthcare professionals and first responders. We've also responded since the incident in Minneapolis with George Floyd to over 50 protests within our service areas. I'm very proud of the manner in which our deputies conducted themselves through those protests, always focused on the protection of First Amendment rights. And we've also supported our partners in public safety and the Fire Authority with 2 major fires that broke out recently in southern Orange County. It's one of many opportunities we have to work with our partners. I'm very proud of the relationship we have with the Orange County Fire Authority and the manner in which we work collaboratively and successfully bring these incidents to resolution. As always with any incident, if you want up-to-date information, I encourage you to go on to alertoc.org, that's alertoc.org, and sign up for emergency notifications. It's the best way to get immediate notifications of emerging threats and emergencies within Orange County. One thing that we did experience this year was the difficulty in our outreach efforts because of the restrictions of COVID-19. I'm very proud of the department once again through the holiday season working with many different organizations who are in need and families who are in need. Our department has been tremendously generous in their giving. 6 Points for Kids is a a group of deputies started several years ago that's focused on outreach. The 6 points are the 6 points of a sheriff's star, and each one has an initiative that they undertake. This year they provided gifts and necessities to families, mostly those transitioning out of foster care. The older teens who oftentimes are leaving foster care who are much greater in need of supplies. And I'm proud of their efforts this year to focus specifically on this group to make sure they have the things they need to be able to transition safely and effectively back into the community as they transition out of the foster care system. For Operation Santa Claus, we collected over 2,000 toys that benefited abused and neglected children. I'm especially proud of Deputy Josh Broadwater, who took point on this endeavor and shared his story with CBS on how important it was for him, and actually with tremendous humility shared a part of his past, and that he once was, as a child, a teen, housed at Orangewood Children's Home, and how he took those lessons and the hope that was provided to him and is now giving back to the community. And I think that shows a tremendous, not a humility, but opportunities that our staff has and how they give. As a safety message, we just got through Christmas, we're going to the New Year's holiday. As always, please, if you're going to be out among the public, don't drink. If you're going to drink, have a plan. Plan for a designated driver, or plan to have a ride home through a driving service such as Lyft or Uber. We do not want to impact families any more this year than they already have been, and one way we can do that is to agree that whoever does go out, to have a plan, and of course make sure you practice the appropriate protocols if you are out for social distancing, masks, and other things. One impact and trend that we're seeing still on the rise is cyber threats, and we want to make sure that people are aware of several things that are happening throughout the community. First, cold call scams are on the rise. These are calls from individuals to your cell phone or home. They oftentimes present themselves to be somebody who they are not. And I will tell you that the scams are effective because they wouldn't be happening if they were not working. So if you receive a phone call saying that you have a warrant for your arrest and you have to pay it then, or to pay with credit cards or gift cards, providing personal information, that's not how the government works. We're not going to contact you to tell you that you have a warrant and you have to pay with gift cards and to mail them to a location. So always be aware of that. Never give your information out to an individual over the phone, because more than likely it's not a legitimate person asking for it. There are several sources that you can go to make sure that you know more about how not to be a victim of crime. FBI has a Protecting Your Kids site. It's fbi.gov, scams and safety, /protecting your kids. That's protecting-your-kids. To find out more, FBI Safe Online Surfing, which is fbi.gov/en, and also the California Department of Justice has a cyber safety for children specifically to make sure anybody who's online, specifically children, are not becoming targets of predators or being lured into doing things that they shouldn't be participating in. This has been a long year on everybody. I'm very proud of this organization, how we respond in supporting our community. I'd ask for your cooperation once again to get through this surge of COVID-19. Please practice the best practices guidelines that have been shared. When in public, wear a mask, socially distance whenever necessary. If not essential, please do not go out within the public. And I wish everybody a happy new year. I know 2021 is going to start out very rough based on the circumstances we're heading to, but we have an opportunity now with the vaccine and other resources coming into Orange County to mitigate COVID-19 in the early months of 2021. Happy New Year, and I wish you the best.